Thank you. Just a little question before starting. How many of you have had to handle a web migration lately? Quite a few of you. This is so great. Usually this is kind of a niche type of technical SEO talk, so I am quite happy to see that many of you have had to encounter and probably had this type of frustration, felt it in your own skin. So yes, web migration in general, right, can be painful. They can have also really bad results if SEO is not taken into consideration since right from the start, from the beginning, to support properly through the whole process before, during, and after the migration takes place. However, with proper SEO input, help, and validation, the opportunity to migrate your website can be very well capitalized in order to improve many of the aspects, many of the configurations that are not properly set already in your current version, right? And you can take that opportunity to improve, to maximize, and then with the migration to make the most out of the situation and increase your organic traffic beyond any of the other type of business functionality type of goals that you're looking to achieve. But yes, indeed, this will require quite a bit of work. I have to say, this is also a little bit painful, right? Like, right from the start, unfortunately, many occasions, our clients don't come right from the start asking for our help, and sometimes we need to come forward like just a couple of weeks before, or even after the migration have taken place, right, in order to try to help to regain the lost traffic in many occasions, right? To identify in every single type of page that needs to be moved, what are the current configurations, specify for each one of them the current technical configuration, what can be changed, what shouldn't be changed, where should it be redirected in the new URL, destination, etc., etc. This is common. This is generally common, right? But yeah, it's painful no matter what, I have to say. Painful if we don't do it, painful when we do it right, because we still need to do a lot of work and wait for a bit to see the results in any case, right? I love when my clients come during those times and ask like, are you sure that we don't need to do anything else? That we will certainly regain all this traffic after 3 days, right? When we have done the migration, like, can you please wait a little bit longer, please? Like this, just taking a little bit of more time to recrawl, reindex, reassess for new rankings. And this is just grow exponentially based on the type of migration. I was talking before about general migrations, but realistically, not all migrations are the same, right? We have sometimes migrations that don't even need to change the web structure of the site, right? It's only a platform or technology type of upgrade, right? Then the HTTP swaps to HTTPS, very common nowadays or lately, and also very easy to handle, I have to say. Then product rebrandings, company rebrandings and acquisitions that we need to merge a few different type of domains. And finally, and I have to say here, and this is what we are going to see, the international type of expansion, consolidation, change of web structure that will require and will relate more type of changes. And that is why we will need to give more input and support, because it's not only the URL structure and the relevance that might be changing, like with any other type of a scenario, right? And a little bit of technical configurations that we will need to validate it. 301 redirects, the indexing status, internal linking status, etc. But in this particular scenario with international migrations, we also have geolocation signals of the web property that will change. We were also using for a long time a very well-established ccTLD with all of the links coming from a certain locations and lots of really good local authority. That will likely not be necessarily like that, right, from scratch. If you move to a gTLD, to a .com, right? Or geolocated link popularity, the same. If you had established your authority in a single country, in a single market, right, and you are quite well established and ranking there already, but you need to start in in some cases, even more competitive market. You will need to care a lot about this, especially if it is the US, if it is Germany, if it is the UK, a very well-competitive market in a very well-competitive niche. And if you look to start targeting these markets with a completely new domain, with a completely new property, with zero links, right? That can be a little bit difficult and is important to take into consideration, and I'm going to show you how. And then the relevance towards the localized search behavior. Sometimes international migrations happen because we want to consolidate many of different properties that we have for markets that are not necessarily that meaningful anymore, or from which we don't get the expected ROI. So for example, maybe we are targeting all of the Latin American countries with specific ccTLDs, and then we realize that realistically the two markets that are profitable from there are just Mexico and Argentina, and that's it. And it doesn't make sense to have single ccTLDs maybe for very small countries in Central America, right? So we decide to, you know what, I know that this is not ideal from a localization perspective, but realistically there's not much coming from this country, so let's just consolidate all of these different smaller ccTLDs from these small markets into one, into the Spanish version. But then we need to always validate and care about that. Of course, the relevance won't be the same towards these markets. That the localization that we used to have, very likely, hopefully, is going to be lost, right? These terms that are used in those specific markets, we'll need to sort out and identify which is the version that we should keep, or try to balance all of this different type of terms that are used in Spanish across these markets to make sure that the content is still relevant for all of them at the same time. It can be tricky a little bit, right? However, it's something that we need to do. And yes, somehow, a lot of us think it's like, you know what, Aleida, don't worry, because usually if it is a migration from a ccTLD to a gTLD to a generic domain like this, right? It's very likely because we want to target even more countries, more markets. We will get then the ability to not be only focused or by default geolocated to a single country. So by default, we shouldn't have that restriction to grow. But we can see examples like this happening again and again. For example, in this particular case, when a FR ccTLD migrated towards .com gTLD, yeah, didn't go that well, unfortunately, for them. But we are going to see that it's not because necessarily that extension at the end of the day influenced in a negative way, but just because they didn't take into consideration many of the factors that I spoke about before, and that we are going to see much more now. And just to clarify, because of course we get a lot of questions, we get a lot of doubts from clients, from our bosses too, asking us like, should we migrate now? It's like, is this not solved if we move to a ccTLD? Like, typical type of comments or questions or doubts that they have. And realistically, what I have been able to see happening again and again, that usually international web migrations will make sense in any of these three types of scenarios, right? And realistically, it's critical to clear up our mind and be completely sure that a migration will help us to solve the goal that we ultimately want to achieve with this website or with this presence, right? Sometimes they don't connect, and then we end up seeing that, we have done all this huge work with the migration, and it doesn't necessarily help us to achieve the desired final outcome that we were looking to have, right? So it's very important that we validate that we might be whether start targeting international audiences, and we find out that the ccTLD that we have been using for our markets won't help us to rank for the US, for example, with a .es ccTLD, that might be a little bit difficult, right? Or that we look to decrease technical complexity and management because we have these dozens of ccTLDs that we cannot manage independently, and we need to update independently, and we need to, oh my God, so much technical burden, right? So we want to consolidate, or we can also, like with the example that I gave before, we are targeting so many international markets independently, and we identify that in our own particular case, the behavior of our audience is the same, and it doesn't make sense, and then we should probably just target the language, right? So we have these three very reasonable type of scenarios that particularly I have found that web migration is reasonable to do. these are the type of questions, right? And these are real questions that I got from a client. It's like, we are researching about changing this MX CCTLD to a .com just because we are seeing that our main competitors, they don't use .com MX. Like, why are we using it? Is the usage of .com MX hurting us or helping us? Like, can you please provide me with your opinion as fellows, right? Or when starting to target a new market, a new international market, right? Like, for example, this British company that was looking to expand to the US here. And they were asking me, like, can we do it with our .co.uk CCTLD, or do we really need to start using a .com, right? Like, because of course, for them, it might have been much easier to do it with their current .co.uk because they wouldn't need to move.